Hey guys, my name is Leslie, and I decided to do my presentation on Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield. If you're like me and you've never heard of her, that was changed. There we go. If you're like me, you've never heard of her, you probably have never once heard of her name, because I know I haven't, which is why I wanted to do my research on her. Um, but after doing research, I actually have been very inspired by her work and what she has contributed to African American history. So, though she was born into slavery, she became a very well known international singer of her time. She was a self taught musician and vocalist with very, very little education. She didn't start receiving a thorough education until she was about 21, 22, so her early 20s. But she started teaching herself how to play the harp and the guitar when she was about 7 or 8 years old. She was the first African American woman to go on national tour and the first African American to be internationally recognized for her musical talents. But the most important thing that I recognized was that she was able to shatter those preconceptions in America about music and race, because as we know, everything in the 1800s at this time was predominantly white, and they did not think that Black people were able to create good music, or that it all sounded bad, or that they could not sing. So she basically was able to steal that spotlight for a while. So this here is just a very brief timeline of her life and major dates and events. So in 1809, she was born in Mississippi, originally just as Elizabeth Taylor. It wasn't until later when she inherited her mistress's last name, Greenfield, so then becoming Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield. Her mistress actually passed away in 1845, so that left her jobless, homeless, no money. So in 51, she decided to move to New York. And this was the year that basically her musical career took off. She was dubbed the Black Swan for the color of her skin and for having the grace and elegance of a swan. So that's how that name came to be. And this is also the year that her national tour began. Um, the national tour went on for a little less than 2 years, and then she went to Europe for her first European tour. And in 54, she performed in front of Queen Victoria at the Buckingham Palace and then returned to the United States that summer. She performed for about another 15 to 20 years until she decided to retire and then open a music school where she would oversee many uprising African American artists and musicians. And then she passed away on March 31st in 76. So, of course, being a successful Black woman in the 1800s was not easy. You would think that she did receive a lot of support, mainly from Black communities, but in some cases, this was not common. So, in cities like Cincinnati, before she would appear for her show, they would advertise in newspapers, where they would also list the rules for seating admissions. And in some cases, Black people were not able to attend um, her shows, and because people were not aware that she had no control over seat admissions, they assumed that she was discriminate against Black people attending her shows. And because of this, she received death threats, received a lot of hostility from certain Black communities. In 1853, I believe, someone threatened to burn down the entire concert hall during her performance. So it was a very hostile environment from the Black community in certain places. And she, from cities that have not seen her perform, but I've heard of her, a lot of people refused to believe that she was African American. Because she got she mainly got good reviews for her voice, saying that she was very graceful, very angelic, and some people just did not want to believe that she was Black, or that she was not fully Black. And of course, she mainly faced white competition. Her biggest competition at the time was Jenny Lind, who was a Swedish opera singer. If you look here on the right, in 1852, a critic actually said her tones were not inferior in power or sweetness of those of Madame Bishop or Jenny Lind. I didn't put the entire quote here, but he also said that he had to listen to her performance with his eyes closed for him actually to enjoy her performance. So that is what it's like to be a black songstress in the 1800s. Just the color of her skin is what held her back from being more successful than she actually should have been. Um, so her legacy that she created did contribute to African American history, obviously. Not only was she the first black entertainer to ever perform in front of British royalty, but she encouraged the opening of the very first successful black-owned record label in 1921, which was called Black Swan Records. It was opened by, sorry, I forgot his name. Harry Pace. There we go. Harry Pace. And he opened it in honor of her legacy to recognize that she did completely set a different tone for music in the 19th century. Um, And aside from that, she paved the way for future black musicians and vocalists. So when she opened her music school after her retirement, she oversaw um, Thomas J. Bowers and Carrie Thomas. But her most important contribution, in my opinion, would be the fact that she completely forced America to see her as an equal. Um, though the color of her skin held her back for her success, I do believe that her voice was more overpowering than the color of her skin. So she did challenge those pre-existing social standards of discrimination. So because people only thought that white people were able to sing and make music that was pleasing to the ear, um, they heard her. And had they not seen her skin, she probably would have been the greatest vocalist of that time. So she did challenge America to step outside of their comfort and look at how they perceive race and music and how that goes together. And that is her contribution to African American history, and that is Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield. Thank you.